Getting to the end of a movie and having things all wrapped up neatly is overrated. Who said we need everything to be resolved? Sometimes you need the chaos of a cliffhanger. Life is unpredictable and uncertain, so why should movies be any different, especially horror? So I'm Amy from What Culture, and here are 10 great cliffhanger endings from recent horror movies. 10. Mother Superior isn't dead yet. St. Agatha. 2018's St. Agatha follows Mary, a young pregnant woman in 1950s Georgia who's forced to flee her abusive father and ends up being taken in by a convent. She's told she must leave behind all of her former possessions and is given the name Agatha, and we soon learn that the Mother Superior's house rules are less than reasonable, with various forms of brutal mental and physical torture in store for those who challenge her or attempt to leave the convent. Agatha ultimately bribes the other nuns to help her escape and dispose of the Mother Superior, locking the latter alive inside a coffin. The film appears to wrap up with Agatha escaping with her newborn child, and the Mother Superior condemned to die locked inside a box. It's then that the movie hits us with a final cliffhanger though, showing the police arriving and removing the lid from Mother Superior's coffin. We're left with the grim realization that not only will Agatha have to contend with Mother Superior, who will almost certainly be out for revenge, but also the possibility that she may be held responsible for all the prior murder and carnage that took place in the convent. 9. The parasite continues to spread. Sea fever. This excellent indie creature feature follows marine biology student Siobhan, who joins the crew of an Irish trawler in order to study marine faunal behaviour patterns. After the ill-advised decision to sail into an exclusion zone, the crew find themselves set upon by an otherworldly, tentacled monster that soon starts to spread a deadly, parasitic infection through their water supply. As the film draws to a close, Siobhan and her fellow crew member are the only remaining survivors, setting fire to the boat to draw attention and escaping on a life raft. As they watch help arriving in the distance, Siobhan realizes that she's been infected with the parasite and she dives into the sea to kill herself to prevent further spread. But as help arrives and the credits roll, things are far from over. The creature remains in the sea, having earlier been shown releasing lava into the ocean, meaning that there's a very real risk of the parasite spreading onto the rescue ship, who in turn risk bringing the parasite back to the mainland. With the film ending on a decidedly more melancholic note than some of the others on this list, these realizations maintain a deep sense of unease as things wrap up. 8. What happens to the kids? The Lodge. Movie stepmothers generally have a tough time. They're typically seen as unwanted symbols of change in the eyes of their new stepchildren, and this is where Grace finds herself in 2019's The Lodge, after she's invited by her husband-to-be to spend Christmas with her soon-to-be stepchildren. Haunted by memories of being raised in a cult and being the sole survivor of their mass suicide, Grace relies on medication to help her deal with her trauma. She soon comes to suspect that the children are pranking her, after her possessions strangely disappear along with all of her medication. She's in the midst of a full breakdown when the children confess that it was all just a ploy to convince her that they were trapped in purgatory. However, by then, it's too late and Grace is too far gone, now fully convinced that they are indeed in purgatory and that they must make a sacrifice in order to reach heaven. By the end, Grace has killed Richard and captured the children, ending on a scene where she contemplates what to do with her gun. With the fate of Grace and the kids left to our imagination, it's a truly chilling payoff to the gradual descent into madness we've witnessed for Grace throughout the movie. 7. What's in the void? The Void. This film follows police officer Daniel, who becomes trapped in a local hospital after rescuing a blood-soaked and delirious man from the side of the road. There he meets Dr. Richard Powell and his estranged wife Allison, who rush the patient away. Things go quickly south for everyone in the hospital as the building becomes surrounded by strange cult-like figures wearing white robes and black triangles. Dr. Powell is killed and a number of bodies start to mutate into horrific creatures. At the close of the film, Daniel confronts a resurrected and villainous Dr. Powell, who's opened a triangular portal into another dimension in the basement of the hospital. After a confrontation, Daniel attempts to stop Powell by throwing them both through the gateway. As things wrap up, we find Daniel and Allison trapped in a desolate void dimension as a colossal monolithic pyramid descends towards them. It's a quietly sinister ending after all the third act monster carnage, and it's even more affecting for it. 6. Is the djinn still in pursuit? Under the Shadow. Under the Shadow follows medical student Shide, who lives in war-torn 1980s Tehran with her young daughter Dorsa. After an unexploded missile strikes their building, Dorsa becomes disturbed and convinced that they're being haunted by an evil spirit, a djinn, which Shide is warned can latch on and pursue people by stealing an item that's precious to them. Dorsa's assertion soon proves all too real after her doll, Kimia, disappears. She and her mother are tormented by this malevolent presence, which appears as a chador-wearing apparition and attacks the pair. At the end of the film, Shide and Dorsa manage to escape the apparition in the car and flee to her husband's parents' home. The final oh no moment comes as the film closes, and we realise that the doll's detached head and Shide's medical textbook are still in their old house, thus still in possession of the Jinn. It's an ominous suggestion that the malevolent force may still be hot on their tails. 5. Is Sarah still haunted? The Hole in the Ground. The Hole in the Ground sees mother and son duo, Sarah and Christopher, move to a house in the woods. After discovering a huge sinkhole in the forest, Sarah becomes convinced that her son has been replaced by an evil entity that's taking his form. In the film's final act, Sarah confronts the entity and reveals it to be a creature known as a changeling, who has taken the form of her son just as she suspected. Sarah then ventures down into the sinkhole, and after a terrifying underground encounter with several faceless creatures, she finds her son and escapes with him. It all seems like a happy ending for the pair as they move away to the city, but as the film ends, we see that Sarah has covered her wall in mirrors. Something she learned earlier allows you to spot a changeling. It's a more subtle cliffhanger than some of the other entries on this list, but it shows that the incident has left heavy scars on Sarah, and at worst, maybe more horror is yet in store for the two of them. 4. What's next for Voss? Possessor. Directed by Brandon Cronenberg, son of renowned filmmaker David Cronenberg, 2020's Possessor shows the apple hasn't fallen far from the tree, with Cronenberg skillfully merging body horror and an intriguing sci-fi concept in this flick. The film follows Voss, an assassin for hire who uses technology to implant her consciousness into another person in order to carry out killings, before simply destroying her host and returning to her own body. Throughout the movie, we see the extreme mental toll that constantly merging with other people's minds is having on Voss, and things start to get especially murky for her after she accepts a contract to kill the CEO of a data analytics company. She gets into the body of his soon-to-be son-in-law Colin, whose mind starts to fight back against the possession. This battle over Colin's mind eventually claims the life of Voss's husband and son, her only remaining personal ties to her current identity, and the final scene of the movie sees her taking a test to determine how much of her humanity remains, and it seems like there's not much there. We're left wondering if there's any of her conscience left, or if she's now just condemned to live out the rest of her days as a soulless killing machine. 3. How does ERIN explain this one? You're next. Meeting your partner's family is always hard, but rarely does it turn out quite as badly as what protagonist ERIN deals with in You're Next. Meeting with her partner Crispin's family, ERIN soon finds herself in the midst of a vicious attack against the group by a gang of mask-wearing intruders. After the inevitable carnage is played out and the body count is racked up, ERIN's previous upbringing in a survivalist compound allows her to get the better of most of the assailants, just in time to find out that her partner was at the center of it all. ERIN confronts and kills him, an act witnessed by a police officer who's now been drawn to the scene. In a final gut-punch moment, fully in keeping with the film's frantic and blackly comedic tone, we see the police officer enter the house only to be promptly chopped straight through the head by a trap that ERIN set up earlier. Oops. The problem here is that even if she could argue self-defense with the other kills, now with a police officer's blood on her hands, ERIN is sure in for some serious trouble. 2. Adelaide's Secret. Us. Jordan Peele's second feature, Us, centers on Adelaide, a woman traumatized by a childhood encounter with an identical copy of herself. Adelaide soon finds herself and her family targeted by their doppelgangers, who up until then had been living below the ground in a government facility. At the close of the film's third act, Adelaide manages to overpower Red, her doppelganger, by breaking her neck, and the family drives off to safety in an ambulance. In a shocking final twist, however, we get the reveal that the Adelaide we've been following is in fact the clone, and that when she met the real Adelaide as a girl, she overpowered her, swapping places to leave her underground instead. In the last moments, her son Jason seems to realize that something's wrong with his mother, at which point she just flashes him a sly smile and the credits roll. It's a delightfully ambiguous note, leaving us to question whether the Adelaide raised in the outside world and the more feral Red raised underground were ever really that different at all, their only true separation being the opportunity offered by their respective environments. 1. Is it still following? It follows. I can easily say that It Follows' ambiguous ending is one of my favourites of the last decade. Having spent the whole film on the edge of my seat, always watching out in the background of the shots for an approaching figure, it was exactly the payoff I needed. The film as a whole follows Jay, who, after having sex with her new boyfriend, finds that she's been given an STD, a sexually transmitted demon. Now she finds she'll be haunted by a shape-shifting demonic entity that will forever follow her unless she passes it on, and if that demon reaches her in its physical form, she'll die. What follows is a nerve-shredding, tense journey, as Jay and her friends attempt to both evade the entity and discover its origins to put an end to it all. After one final stab at destroying the demon, we think it might all be over. That is, until we see Jay and her new beau walking down the street hand in hand, seemingly followed by a figure walking towards them. As the credits roll, we're left wondering if the figure was simply another pedestrian or if the curse was never actually destroyed, and oh boy is it effective. And with that, we've reached the end of this list of 10 great cliffhanger endings from recent horror movies. Which one of these do you think was the best? Let us know in the comments down below. And remember to check out whatculture.com for more lists and articles like this every single day. As always, I've been Amy from What Culture, and I'll catch you next time.